welcome back to another video. I am filming this the same day this goes up, just strictly because I haven't had the time. I've been very busy over here in the gaming corner. Yeah, getting a mortgage, other stuff, busy. So, today I thought I'd talk about some of my hidden gems on the original Xbox. There are some gaps in the shelf, as you can see, because of our big fat stack of the buys. These are not games you will typically see on a hidden gems list. It's about 10. You won't normally see these. They're not all Xbox games either. They're just games I happen to have on the Xbox that I thought might be interesting to talk about. Starting with, although this is only on Xbox, ARX Fatalis. So, ARX Fatalis is by ARX Studios, who did things like Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, Dishonored, Dishonored 2, Dishonored Death the Outsider, Shit, Deathloop, Shit being Redfall. And yeah, they made ARX Fatalis was their first game. It's a very weird idea. So the idea is it's a post-apocalyptic fantasy setting where you exist, and humanity and other races exist underground after the sun went cold, which is interesting. As a result, they rely heavily on magic to grow food, survive, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of crash down from the surface, and you have to kind of survive. Kill pure evil. Things like that. It had this really interesting magic system where I don't really know how to explain it, so I'll let this explain it. Basically, where are we? Where is the music? Okay, so you kind of create runes through a series of different button presses. There we go. So say you press down, right, up, that creates fire. If you press right, it's create, deny, improve, and then none for down, which is strange. Yeah, and then those runes in turn create different magical effects. So for example, if I was to use up, right, down, right, that would create invulnerability, for example. It's super elaborate. You can just kind of create and automatically enter magic systems, magic in general on this game. But yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird. I haven't really got into it, to be honest with you. There's a few games from Arcane that I just flat out don't like. I hate Prey. I think it's god awful. Then again, I might be biased with original Prey, because original Prey is best Prey. But yeah, ARX Fatalis is kind of the other one. I tried to get into Dark Messiah of Might and Magic as well, but nothing's quite as impenetrable as ARX Fatalis for me. But the magic system's unique enough for me to kind of recommend it. I mean, it's weird, but it's certainly worth giving a go. It's also on PC. It's currently available on GOG, I think. Could be wrong. Could be horribly wrong on that, but here we are. Additionally, next up, we've got Shattered Union. This isn't just on Xbox. I think it's on PS2 as well. So this is a tactical strategy game. I know. It's a turn-based strategy game where you control one of a series of federations in America. So you control, like, say, New England or the Texas Republic or the California Republic and things like that, or the EU, and you kind of take over America after it's collapsed into a massive civil war, and you kind of form it based around you're basically trying to reform America. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty interesting, unique little game. Plays really well, looks really good. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. It's even got 1 to 2 local player, or it's got 2v2 on System Link, which is cool. There's not many System Link games that I have actually wanted to play outside of maybe Doom 3, but Shattered Union is certainly one of them. Not quite as... definitely a more complex tactical strategy game. It's not one I've put a lot, kind of like ARX Fatalis. It's not one I've put a lot of time into, but it's certainly one I want to put more time into because it's a lot of fun. Moving on, we have one that's slightly less, not accessible, but is a huge part of my childhood. So, growing up, really into all your bog standard late 90s, early 2000s stuff that a boy would be into. So I was into the new He-Man, I had Castle Grayskull, things like that. I was really into, in a way, Winx Club to begin with. Very strange, yes I know. Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, blah blah blah. Digimon, as evidenced by my Omnimon that I have up there that I bought recently. But the major thing, one of the absolute mega things for me, was Bionicle. I've still got all of them. Still got every single one I've ever owned is in a box in the game zone. But I bought the game. Now, there's something called The Legend of the Kanohi, which is coming out. It's a fan game. I wish LEGO would go, you know what, we'll give them some money to launch it on other platforms than just PC as a free fan game. But, unfortunately, here we are. It's kind of like if that game is like this one, but taken to its logical extreme. So this follows quite a lot of the Toa Nuva stuff. So it's set after like the initial run of Bionicle, which was the Toa Mata. Then they fight the Borok, which were like an insectoid race of machines with like masks in their heads that controlled them, called Krana. And then they were mutated while fighting the Borok Queens, defeated them with these new Toa Nuva forms. And then we got kind of an evolution into the 7th Toa, or the Toa of Light, who was Takanuva. Yeah, this game's very heavy on that. So, round about the time this released, there was a movie coming out called Mask of Light. So, Mask of Light was the first big Bionicle movie. It's probably one of the first major LEGO films ever produced. And I, unfortunately for my family, we ended up going to Legoland Windsor on the day of the premiere. So I was like, we have to go into that. So we did. I dragged my family in. The movie's not super long. I think it's like an hour and 10 minutes or something. So it didn't take up a whole lot. But that I remember that is flat out one of the major things I remember from going to Legoland as a kid was a Bionicle in general. I was freaking obsessed with Bionicle. Not so much anymore. I would like to get into it again. I kind of fell out of it after the initial 4 kind of stages, the 4 kind of sets. You had Toa Mata, Borok Carl, and then you had the Rakshi. I tried to get into Toa Metru and Bionicle Metru, just couldn't really. I didn't like how the sets looked. I thought the story was more boring. Then you had Toa Inika, I think, with the Paraka. Then you had the Toa Mari. Then you had the Toa Mystica, which brought us back to the original Toa Nuva, or Toa Mata. No games, really, after this, apart from Bionicle Heroes, which I think I have, but I could be wrong. I may do a Bionicle video. We'll see. That'd be very cool. But yeah, Bionicle is a very solid platformer. It's very limited in what it can do. I wouldn't recommend playing it today. It is a hidden gem as far as I'm concerned, but yeah. Unless you're a massive Bionicle fan who wants to experience everything Bionicle, that's only the real way I can recommend it. I think it's good, but I might be biased. Moving on. American McGee's Scrapland. Now, American McGee has had a interesting career. So the guy started on Doom, as many people have. And then down the line, because if you worked on Doom, even on one map, you got a game out of it, he made Alice. So he made American McGee's Alice. I believe he was fervently against calling it American McGee's Alice, but I think they did that for copyright reasons. So he made that, which is a kind of third-person shooter / action game based around the Quake engine, and in turn Alice in Wonderland, except it's fucked up. He then went to work on some other absolute trash. Throughout the early 2000s, he worked on Bad Day LA, which was just bad and in a lot of ways borderline offensive. He worked on Grimm, which was fine. Then he worked on Alice, Madness Returns, which is probably one of my favourite 3D platformers of all. I think it's great. Then he tried to get Alice Other Lands made, or he tried to get a new Alice game made. They made a whole pitch, and they had a book, they had art, they had support ready to go, and then they showed it to EA, and EA went, no, because we're shit. So unfortunately he's retired from game development, which sucks. But one of the other games he made was Scrapland. Now, Scrapland is a kind of murder mystery, open world, robotics adventure game with combat centered around flight. It's very out there. So you play as this figure who is called Detritus, as in D-Tritus, Detritus, who comes to the asteroid Scrapland, which is ruled over, well, not ruled over, but the major business there is something called the Great Database. The Great Database is any robot that comes to Scrapland or lives in Scrapland, unless they're a mercenary, gains lives. So they can purchase lives, and if they're destroyed or if they're killed, they are reconstituted at the Great Database. And the whole game starts off with the death of the Archbishop, who controls the database, and it turns out that his code has been removed. He's not in the database anymore. He's been completely erased. So you, as Detritus, go around and try to figure out what the mystery is. That's very cool. It's very cool. It's a game I really, really genuinely want to finish. You know, it's open world, there's combat, there's racing, there's like 15 characters you can switch between at once. Each one has a unique ability. It's just very cool. There's a floating, like, nurse robot whose arms are just one giant hammer that they use to knock some sense back into some of the robots that they're in charge of, which is quite funny. But yeah, I do recommend. I really recommend this game. It's very solid. It's definitely one of my absolute favourites on the original Xbox. Totally worth it. I think it was only on the original Xbox and PC back in the day. I don't think there was a PS2 port, which is a shame for anyone who plays PS2. Not so much. Okay. Jager. So this was developed by Jager. So it's Jager developed by Jager. It's a weird game. It presents itself kind of as like a movie. It's a kind of tactical. Well, not tactical. It's an air combat sim. You're in this kind of ship that you fly around. Genuinely swear they spelled Jaeger upside down when they made this. But yeah, it's weird. It's kind of out there. Very in-depth. Very super in-depth. Lots of characters, lots of plot and backstory and everything. And it presents itself as this big movie because you've got Marcus Tide and Sarah McDavid and Gunther Van Berg on the front cover, and it's like, okay, this isn't a movie, it's a video game on the Xbox original. I mean, it's not going to be swimming in popularity, but yeah, I mean, this game's not expensive. I think I bought it for like £2 about 10 years ago. It's okay. It's good. I think it's impressive to look at. It's actually quite pretty, especially for the era. Like, there's certain games that just flat out have aged phenomenally on the original Xbox, like Jet Set Radio. I think Panzer Dragoon Auto is still one of the best looking fucking games on that system. It's amazing. That is not on this list. No, because I've talked about that game enough. This is just stuff that I think is worth playing. And I think Jaeger's worth at least a try. I haven't played too much of it beyond like the first 6 hours. Maybe because I'm very bad at it. I played it for about 6 hours in one sitting and I went, you know what, this is fine. It's good. I don't know if it's really worth... The real kicker is I can't remember most of it, but I certainly would recommend giving it a try. No, strange. Okay, here's a game that I'm just going to gloss over because my wife will kill me if she finds out that I've suggested it. Here we are. Dead or Alive Extreme Volleyball. If you like the Dead or Alive fighting game franchise, you may like all of the girls playing volleyball in bikinis. This is not a game that would be made nowadays. It really... I say that. I found it. I found it. They made the third one. It's been released only in Japan. Umming and ahhing. But to be fair, I'm not a huge fan of volleyball games. But yeah, I mean, graphically, this one's quite impressive. Ignoring the obvious. But yeah. Buy it. It's good. Maybe. Moving on. Before I get in trouble. Okay. This one's stupid, but it sounds like a hell of a lot of fun. So, this is Arctic Thunder. Arctic Thunder is a snowmobile racing game. Now, the original, the 6th generation of consoles, so PS2, GameCube, Dreamcast, Xbox, huge on the extreme sports and the sports games / racing games / that sort of era in general. You don't really get that anymore. You don't get stuff like SSX Tricky. You don't get stuff like Amped, 1080 snowboarding. You don't get Wave Race anymore, which sucks ass. But this one goes, hey, how do we make snowmobile racing different? Let's give them rocket launchers. Yeah. Snow bombs, atomic snowballs, just whole incomprehensible level of fucking stupid, and it is amazing. I wish we got games like this nowadays. I wish they went, yeah, fuck it. Let's make a snowboarding game where everybody's holding dual machine guns as they fucking do air flips, just firing at the nearest people. I think that would be amazing. That'd be so good. I'd play the actual shit out of that. I would. Look, I'm a huge fan of like SSX and Amped. I weirdly love snowboarding games. I think they're a hell of a lot of fun. And having Arctic Thunder is just genuinely very cool. 12 different tracks, battle arenas. It's got a battle mode like fucking Mario Kart, which is crazy because snowmobiles aren't the most maneuverable things in the world, which is just absolutely insane. 19 characters. Yeah, just really cool. Cool. It's fast. It plays fast. It's stupid. I love games that are stupid. I love games where I can go, yeah, that's dumb. And it's amazing. Moving on from that kind of stupid to creepy way. It is Whacked. Whacked is a very bizarre game show sort of game. It's kind of like Bloody Good Time or The Ship in terms of tone. The Ship is on PC if you haven't played it. It's this kind of like it's a game show where you kill each other. There's loads of those. Monday Night Combat, for example. But Whacked is kind of a deathmatch thing. There's different contestants, 30 plus weapons, staple guns, cannons, that sort of thing. 13 different levels. Like it's out there. It's kind of like if Mario Party had machetes, and it's kind of a deathmatch sort of thing. It's okay. It's definitely one of those games where it's like, yeah, okay. It didn't have online. Well, oh no, it did. This had online multiplayer. There were people in 2002 going, I'm gonna get Xbox Live, and I'm gonna see if Xbox Live is actually worth getting. I wonder what games are available. Whacked. Xbox Live wouldn't pick up until like 2 years later with Halo 2. It's just insane that this was one of the major games on there at the time. Absolutely baffling. I liked Whacked. It's not a game I go back and play that often, but is one I think is actually stupidly good fun. But nowadays I don't know if it's definitely not readily available. You won't find this kicking around too many shops anymore. I mean, again, I bought this like 15 years ago for like £2, cheap as shit, and it's not very good. Well, no, it's fine. It's certainly This video is kind of hidden gem, kind of hidden trash, but it's fun trash. These last two games, though, aren't trash. They're not trash in any sense of the word. We'll get to that one, but here's a game that I don't think a lot of people talk about. It's a kind of action-based product registration for Sega. There's a little hint of absolutely no inclination. This is an Xbox original exclusive, I believe. Released only in America from what I've been able to tell. It might have been released in Japan as well. It does work on PAL consoles, very similarly to a game called Warpath. So Warpath was a first-person shooter developed by the guys who made Pariah. It was supposed to be a sequel to Pariah, but then Pariah sold like shit. So they were like, I can't really do that. So they instead released Warpath. But Sega made Iron Phoenix. So Iron Phoenix is a third-person multiplayer deathmatch game where it's got full Xbox Live support, up to 16 players, clans, downloadable content. It's pretty wacky. It doesn't work very well. So, about 13 years ago. So about 13 years ago, Sega and Platinum Games were developing something called Anarchy Reigns. Anarchy Reigns is a third-person brawler with weapons where you can have up to about 16 people beating the shit out of each other in a deathmatch style. It did not occur to me at the time that, 7 years earlier, Sega made this. Sega made this game, and it is insane. It's busy. 16 players feels like almost too much. There's a lot of different weapons. There's so many different characters. I am very, very bad at it. Yeah, it's strange. It's strange. It's like a multiplayer game nowadays, but they went, fuck it. Let's make it like, I don't know, Bayonetta, which would be cool. And we had, but then it died because nobody bought it. Because Sega went, this won't release. This won't release. Anarchy Reigns will be shit. We're not fucking releasing that. And then they did 6 months later. But Iron Phoenix. Yeah, I recommend this game heavily. I'm terrible at it. Then again, I'm garbage in most games. But I really do think Iron Phoenix is definitely worth picking up because that's not a game you hear anybody talk about. Nobody talks about Iron Phoenix. I'm astounded I found it. First ever 16-player online fighting game. Yeah, I don't think anybody has claimed that title since. Largely because third-person fighting games don't always work. That being said, 16-player ARMS would be amazing. Not that Nintendo will ever make another ARMS game, which sucks, because that game is just so fucking good. Really loved ARMS. Final game. I picked up the primer guide for this a while ago, because it's something I've had on my back burner of shit to buy for like 10 years. Of like, I'll get it eventually. And then I found it on Amazon for like 20 quid. And I was like, okay, I'll buy it. That's fine. I've picked up the last two primer guides I want. So I picked up Advent Rising and I picked up Goblin Commander. Unleash the Horde. Yeah, it's a strategy game. On the original Xbox and the GameCube and the PS2. I found it first on Xbox. I've been debating on getting it for GameCube, but then what's the point? I've got it. I really, really like this game. You control a series of goblin hordes. So you control, I think it's up to 5. Oh, there's 5. There's 5 different clans, and you can control like 3 per map. Each one does different stuff. Each one is effective against another. So, for example, I think Stonecrusher are good against Nighthorde. Nighthorde are good against Hellfire. Hellfire are good against Plague Spitters. Plague Spitters are good against Stormbringers, or it's Stormbringers are good against them, and then Plague Spitters are good against Nighthorde. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it's kind of like that. I think this game is amazing. It's got a full-blown multiplayer mode. It's split screen only, which is really interesting. You do not see that in most strategy games. The only other example I can think of is the Nintendo 64 port of StarCraft. StarCraft 64, which I am looking at, is the only other RTS game I can think of on a console around that era that had local split screen. That's just wacky. That's very wacky. I got a couple on the PS2, like Kessen. I don't think Kessen did. I don't know if I'd count like Kingdom Under Fire, either Heroes or Crusaders. But yeah, Goblin Commander's a very, very solid game that, again, you never hear anybody talking about. And it's not a game that would be made today. It just isn't. There's a lot of games. Most of this stack is not the kind of game you would get nowadays, for different reasons. You wouldn't get Goblin Commander because it's too weird. You wouldn't get Iron Phoenix because it's just an idea that's not been tried enough to be profitable. You wouldn't get Whacked because it's fucking bizarre. Arctic Thunder's unfortunately too stupid to make, but it's also of a genre and trend that just has been dead for about 20 years. Dead or Alive Extreme Volleyball, yeah, you'd get that. Jager, again, this kind of movie-inspired and like cinematic air combat sim, again, you wouldn't get. Scrapland, you would never get anything like Scrapland nowadays. It's just too strange. It's a combination of genres that doesn't get done that often, which sucks because it's awesome. Bionicle, you wouldn't get a licensed Lego game based on an original Lego property because they don't do them anymore, or at least the ones they do suck. Shattered Union, you wouldn't get like a tactical strategy game about the collapse of America or anything fun like alternate history. You just don't. And then ARX Fatalis is, again, it's not linear, but it's just, yeah. Its magic system is a bit too complicated for a console in particular to actually be of any use. Well, that's not fair. But yeah, it's just kind of too... They're all too weird. There's a lot from 6th gen that just wouldn't get made because it's just too weird. I think that's a shame. But here we are. That is my Xbox original hidden gems and a bit of a rant about how much I prefer 6th gen over like any other, apart from maybe 7, but that's up for debate. I lean more 6 because there's more weird shit in it. But yeah, that is me signing off for another week, and hopefully next week we will talk about something else. Anyway, that is me signing off, and have a good one.